Okay, a few more thoughts on prevention. Well, the first is how are you deploying things? If you aren't using infrastructure as code, that's probably the number one thing I think any environment can do in efficiently managing their cloud, their public cloud environment. Pushing buttons in a console, like you deploy an EC2 through the AWS console, right? It's going to deploy a bunch of other stuff behind the scenes because it knows what you're trying to do, but you don't have visibility into that. And then when you go and delete that EC2 or that VM, those supporting resources, they aren't cascaded out in deletes. So by committing to infrastructure as code, so that's CloudFormation and AWS, that's Azure ARM templates, that's like a Terraform in a multi-cloud environment. It does a bunch of things. It's going to help you across the board. But germane to this topic is you have to declare what it is you're trying to deploy. And it's not going to automatically create the supporting resources. So just by dint of doing this, you're going to know more about what's being deployed. But really where the value is that when you go to destroy, that's a Terraform term, or remove stacks or delete them, it's going to much more thoroughly remove what it is you've deployed than using the Azure portal or using the AWS console. And another piece to this is just be aware, and I've kind of mentioned it, excuse me, that whether you're using, and when I say console here, what I mean is the AWS console, and similar to the Azure portal, right? So the web GUIs, the web UIs, they work different than Terraform works. They work different than CloudFormation, right? So rollbacks, failed deployments behave differently. Deletions behave differently. Understand how those work, because you really have to understand how you properly and thoroughly remove resources you no longer need as broadly as possible, so you don't end up creating that sort of orphanage environment. Drift detection, and this is obviously an area where Fugue is fantastic, is keeping track of what's being deployed is really important to understanding what ultimately needs to be removed. So we have config set up so that each night I get an email of a summary change of each account, assuming something's changed. So it's a quick read and a quick way of understanding, hey, this developer deployed this stack was deployed, these resources are deployed, so that I can create a mental check on going, okay, I need to keep thinking about that. I need to talk to the developer about what they deployed, make sure there's an end life cycle to it. So drift detection, which is really fundamentally a configuration management and a compliance piece. It's also important and extremely useful in understanding what's been deployed, because if you have dev environments where they're more open, and you need self-provisioning for developers, and you want to really realize the value of that public cloud, the speed, right, self-provisioning. There's, other than this sort of iterative or incremental notification of what's changed, it's hard to keep track of what people are doing and what's been deployed. All right, and the last thing is, this really probably is the most important thing. It's not the cool, it's not a cool screen or a script or something, but really, I think the most important thing you can do is to commit to recurring, routine auditing and reporting of your environments, and use the tools. Hopefully some of the things we've shown here are of some value, hopefully. You'll have to figure some out on your own and do your own, some investigation. Quarterly 2-hour meeting with your engineers to do a deep dive on what's out there, or maybe part of your monthly billing process when you're paying your invoices is to sit down and do an audit of what's in that, and use that as a roadmap to investigate what's out there and what can be removed. You will save money. Every account I've ever been in since my first exposure to AWS in like 2008, every environment, you can remove stuff that's not needed. You will save money for your customers or yourself, and you'll reduce your threat surface area. And then here are some things that we get really excited about and like working with our customers on, is moving towards that immutable and ephemeral infrastructure model. Blue-green deployments, align infrastructure lifecycle to your sprints or releases. In other words, let's have environments that last hours or weeks, right? Not years, right? Let's have that's the, and in order to realize this, you have to script and automate. But by doing that, you're ensuring that you keep track of what's out there and you're removing it in a routine fashion. All right. Yeah, and the last one is, I think, tough for organizations, but it's important, is that onboarding and offboarding process, cleaning up directories and identities, keeping no longer needed users, keeping them out.